It is why, DRS, the Chiefs will play in an AFC Championship game for a spot in Super Bowl 59 once again on Sunday night. And look at the numbers for an AFC Championship game between two very familiar foes. 1.5 points in favor of KC. Minus 122 now on the money line. We're talking 26 cents of difference and a total of 48.5. You said it as we started to break down the divisional round game between the Chiefs and the Texans, that you'll be rooting for Buffalo to give us something new and fresh, contending for a Lombardi trophy. And you'll hear from everybody this week, the Bills have this advantage. The Bills have this edge over KC this year. But at the end of the day, it's Andy Reid, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, it's Steve Spagnuolo, it's Chris Jones. The list goes on and on in the Chiefs in an AFC Championship game for a 7th consecutive season.
It's amazing. And yes, they have home field advantage, and we understand that the game was already decided earlier in the season. Like, hey, Buffalo's got that advantage. They're thinking about it already. They can beat this team. We've seen crazier circumstances where the Bills actually had Kansas City beat in a playoff game in their own building with seconds left on the clock and still wound up losing that. You see the total in that game, which is interesting. Weather forecast is supposed to be cold, not as cold as you saw in Kansas City this past week, about 32, 33 degrees. No precipitation in the forecast and light winds. Fantastic. We don't want any extracurriculars to come into this one. We want the cleanest football we can get. I look at that 48.5, and your initial results, wow. AFC title game, Chiefs, slow it down. But I've always asked for this because if the MO is true, Kansas City will engage you in any style you want to play because they have Mahomes and Andy Reid and a great defense. You want to slow it down where they feel that you can't score on them, Kansas City will slow it down with you. But in order to make enough plays, which I think the Bills can, I want to see Kansas City's offense awaken in this game. Take some shots deep because they know they can't just say, well, we'll hang around a long time in this game, and we just think we'll steal it from the Bills. The Bills are too talented to do that. So I'm intrigued by thinking early in the week this game should be all over because of the game script itself. But then you see that minus 1.5. And what are we asking, Ben? Okay, it comes down to the Chiefs are at home. They are healthy. And you just need the Chiefs to win this game, and there will be people ringing that flag up there for the Buffalo Bills at the end of that game going, Ben, the same thing. Refs cheated us. We didn't make kicks. Unbelievable. How did the Chiefs win? And we go, they do this every single year. Every year. Ben, their record isn't 9-8 this year where they got so lucky to win. Look at their record. Look at their record over the past decade with Andy Reid. This is what they do. They just win. And all they have to do with that 1.5 is just win.
16-3. Now the playoff record for Patrick Mahomes as the starting quarterback in Kansas City. The Chiefs attempting to make history, to become the first ever back-to-back Super Bowl champion to even play in a third consecutive Super Bowl, let alone win a Lombardi trophy. And the Bills now have to see their postseason nemesis once again for a spot in a Super Bowl on the line. More on that game in the AFC title and the NFC Championship between two familiar foes as well. Next. For a spot in Super Bowl 59, it's Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen once again. The Buffalo Bills have won the AFC East now for 5 consecutive seasons. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have played in the AFC Championship game now for 7 consecutive years. But in the head-to-head, DRS, since the start of 2020, the Bills and the Chiefs have played 5 times in the regular season. Buffalo has won 4. Dominant, some might say. They have played 3 times in the postseason. The Chiefs have won all 3, including the 2020 AFC Championship game, the largest margin of victory for KC. They won by 2 touchdowns as around a field goal favorite at home. The last 2, including last year in the divisional round and a monumental divisional round matchup in 2021's NFL season, were as good of football games as you will get. Last year decided by just 3 points. Of course, 2021 in overtime, the Chiefs winning in 13 seconds, as we all know it, in regulation as well. And what we will see for the 4th time in the last 5 years, these two teams will meet up in a playoff game, now in a conference championship for a spot in Super Bowl 59 at stake. 26 cents of difference. That's it on the money line.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy as it lines up this way, right? And just think of if Patrick Mahomes was in the NFC and not the AFC, how much better you'd be said, hey, man, Josh Allen's been to multiple Super Bowls. Lamar Jackson's been to the Super Bowls here. That's not the case because you keep running into Kansas City and primarily running into Kansas City at home. And sometimes, Ben, it even goes back just to last year. Like, last year was the year to get the Chiefs. Yes, they had the home playoff game to start against the Miami Dolphins. Like, there's no way the Chiefs with that football team are going to Buffalo and to Baltimore and winning those games, and they did. Now they have home field advantage, which is exactly where you want to be, taking on a team that you've had playoff success with over the past couple years, and you're lining that game up at 1.5. It'll be interesting again because I do think the gameplay opens up more at that 48.5, and to some out there is 47.5, depending on where you're shopping at. But FanDuel today is 48.5 and 1.5. It doesn't. The things I'm trying to say here is that line itself, we don't make that up. It's there for a reason. But boy, oh boy, like I guess there are people out there that just have the notion of finally Buffalo has them right where they wanted. But Buffalo didn't have them right where they wanted last year at home in their own building. Yeah. And you see that 1.5. And sometimes you don't want to overcomplicate things. And usually your first inclination is the correct one. When I saw that line at 1.5, I thought immediately of Kansas City just has to win a home playoff game, which is what they always do to get to the Super Bowl, which feels like that's what they always do. Like, am I wrong? Is that just so much of a thought process that's like, you're crazy, that line shows ultimate respect to Buffalo, and it does. But we've seen Kansas City disrespected in more ways than one. As if, like, did we ever see, like, New England disrespected with all those playoff runs? It's always like the line was appropriate for them, where you never looked at them like, that doesn't make too much sense. But now I just think we're feeding into it. And that same notion I had, Ben, they weren't 9-8 getting lucky winning games. Exactly. Yes, at the end of the games, they're blocking field goals and they're getting plays going in the direction. But that's not a luck factor. That is a team putting themselves in the best possible position to win on a week-to-week basis and understanding they play those games and win the majority of them. And that's what we're setting up on Sunday. For me, look, love it. We're content people. Buffalo in the Super Bowl, content gold. Something new, something fresh, something fun. Kansas City in the Super Bowl again. Same thing pops up. The same way we had all those New England Patriots games. Like, just give us something new. A lot of us are just rooting for that alone.
Absolutely so. And DRS, that number is telling you that on a neutral field, the Buffalo Bills are a better football team. On a neutral field in a non-playoff atmosphere, the Bills might be laying 3.5 way back in week number 11 when they met up in the regular season in Orchard Park. The Bills were around a 2.5 point favorite, won that game 30-21. In the 16 regular season games that KC played its starters for, it was the only loss. Again, you might hate it, but you hate it because of how great Kansas City has been. They were 15-1 in the regular season. They are looking to make history just with a victory on Sunday night against the Bills, becoming the first ever back-to-back Super Bowl champion in NFL history, even to reach a third consecutive Super Bowl. The Chiefs against the Bills in the postseason are a perfect 3-0 straight up and 3-0 against the spread. The Bills did exercise one of their playoff demons yesterday in the victory against Baltimore. Bounced from the divisional round 3 consecutive years. They got to the AFC Championship game. Now they need to exercise another one. Their playoff nemesis, losing to the Chiefs 3 times in the last 4 postseasons, a 4th time in the last 5 years. So very familiar foes when it comes to trying to reach the pinnacle of the AFC. Very familiar foes, DRS, in that NFC title game on Sunday in Philadelphia as well. Divisional mates from the NFC East, now in the NFC title game. Philadelphia, a 5.5 point favorite against the Washington Commanders. Line opened up last night at 4.5 in favor of the Birds. It has quickly worked in Philly's favor. Total 47.5. What is your first read on that 5.5 point number in favor of the Eagles?
You want to watch what's going to take place this week. And the reason I bring that up is the practice reports are going to be key, because when key players are missing, that's going to affect lines, which includes quarterbacks here. If Jalen Hurts probably going to get limited practices in this week, if he's functional in the pocket, they should be okay. Also understand this, Quinyon Mitchell, one of the best young, talented cornerbacks in the NFL, which you're going to need next week, looks like he was possibly done for the season. But now we're getting some updates that it wasn't all that serious, something to keep an eye on there. Also, a key offensive player for the Washington Commanders, which is Sam Cosmi on that offensive line. We'll get some updates there. And why would a guard who might be your best offensive player be kind of important going up against Jalen Carter? I need to watch this week, but that shows me that's a strong number. 4.5 to 5.5 now for the Eagles at home. The odds makers are saying the Eagles are the better team, which they are. The Eagles are at home, which they are, and they should advance to play in the Super Bowl. That's how I read that line right now.
A best of 3 between Philadelphia and Washington. And Philadelphia, DRS, not just a 5.5-point favorite to win the NFC Championship, a plus 180 favorite to win a Lombardi trophy in front of both teams from the AFC. That includes the Chiefs and the Bills, of course.